I'll start off with how I became acquainted with Bill, and it all started actually with the Marquis, which is the '56 Ford that Bill radically customized in his shop in Monterey. The car was built originally for Gene Boucher, and it became a mild project, turned into a major project over the years, and evolved into a car being sectioned and other parts being grafted on and sculpturing. It came out quite extremely radical. Gene showed the car for a year, a little over a year, and put the car away in the garage for many, many years, and then finally sold the car to a friend of mine called Harry Costa. Harry Costa had acquired the car and had it for a very short time. I happened to be driving by his home one day, and I saw the car in the driveway. And I stopped and talked with Harry about the car. I said, that's really quite a car. And he said, yeah, he gave me a little history on it. And I wound up acquiring the car. I did a trade with him on a Pontiac Grand Prix I had. So anyway, I wound up with the car, and my intent at the time was to restore it back to original condition, as the condition of the car was good, but it was starting to get tired. The paint was tired, starting to get some cracking in it. Unfortunately, it had been left out in the weather a little bit for a short duration of time, and water had seeped in through the cracks and into the metal. Anyway, I acquired the car with the intent of restoring it and putting it back on the show circuit. This was probably in 1975, 76, when I acquired the Marquis. And so over the years, I had gone through several people who initially were going to do the work for me, and it never evolved. And it wound up in my basement for a long time. Then it wound up with a guy who was going to do the work, and it sat outside again for a duration of time, which did not help the car in any way, shape, or form. I finally brought it back home and started dismantling it and looking and searching for someone to do the work. Finally, I got a hold of Jerry Sahagan, who was a good friend of mine and a very famous upholsterer during the 50s and 60s. And he had opened up a shop where he was doing full customized work. I took the car over to him. We disassembled the car even further to come to a complete frame off. Cleaning the frame, put a new engine in it, rebuilt the engine, I should say. And then that came to a screeching halt with him. And so I had to seek out someone else, John Aiello and Daryl Hollenbeck, who had a shop over in Antioch. They continued to work on the car, and finally got it to the stage where it was running, put the body back on the frame, and it was ready and prepped for paint. Showed the car for about 6 months, and I was not happy with the color that had come out, so we repainted the car. This time it was done by Bill Reisner, repainted the car for me. And that's how the Marquis came about. One thing that Jerry Sahagan did do, he did the interior on the car with a lot of updates that were not of the original, but however, following somewhat of the original lines. Exterior-wise, the only modification I did on the Marquis was something that Bill had wanted to do. Initially, it didn't have time to do it, to finish the car, and that was to redo the rear wheel wells. He didn't like the way that they came out and wanted to revamp them and bring them down lower. So that was done in the process of the restoration of the body and the body work. So finally the Marquis was finished and went on the show circuit and did very well. The Marquis has since spent the last 5 years in the California Automobile Museum in Sacramento. Prior to that, the Marquis was at the Harrah's Museum on display, and then prior to that, it was at the Peterson Museum on display. So the Marquis has had a lot of museum exposure, shall we say, and out in where it should be, as far as I'm concerned. My feeling is exposed to the public for them to see the type of work and design that Bill Cushenbery was capable of producing. A lot of people who approach that car cannot even recognize what kind of a car it is, which was originally a 56 Ford Victoria. The rear half of that car is actually 59 Buick, which Bill grafted and modified and sculptured to fit onto the back end of the 56 Ford. The entire front end of the car is all hand sculptured. That's all hand done, completely, hammer and lead and all that. That was all done by Bill, and very unusual design work that he did on that car. The way he tucked the fenders in and so on. Tremendous amount of work in that car. Bill was very, very creative. He liked to build exotic, one-off prototype cars. That was really where his heart was. That's the type of thing that Bill always strived to do, was to make something so unusual, using his talents and exposing his capabilities of making something that would draw people to the car. That was what Bill's design work was all about.